This is a 4-part series for the National Museum of Military Vehicles. This is part 1.
I've been leading these tours a little over a year, ever since we first opened up. And I know there are a number of questions that you all are going to want to ask me. So let's just hit them right now. This is one man's private collection. This is my boss, Dan Starks. He's from upstate New York. He made his money in Minnesota selling medical equipment, heart monitors, and I don't know exactly what all else. But he made his money in Minnesota, and then he and his wife retired out here. So that's why when people say, why is this museum in the middle of nowhere? Because Dan lives here, and he doesn't want to drive to see his stuff. So he starts out, about 10 years or so ago. Every 4th of July, we have a parade here in town. And he decided he wanted to put a tank in the parade. So he bought a tank, like you do. It wasn't running in time, so we bought a second tank. And I will point those out when we get out onto the floor. All of the vehicles we have still run. Some of them better than others, of course. When you get to be 80 years old, it's a little bit harder to get out of bed sometimes. I don't want to think about that because I'm creeping up on that. But all the vehicles still run. We take the oil, we take the gas out, we drop the batteries out of them, but we can get these things running up again pretty quick if we needed to. To include the helicopter, we've got a UH-1 she was airworthy 2 years ago. Now, all the weapons that you're going to see on all these vehicles, none of them function anymore. They've been demilitarized one way or another. And sometimes you look up and you'll see like a hole that's been cut out of the bottom of one of the main guns, like a big cannon on the tank. You'll see that right there. On the other hand, all these weapons in this vault are fully functional, to include the machine guns. So the machine guns, the shotguns, the rifles, the sidearms, all of that are still fully functional. So that means that this vault door is the real deal. This isn't just here for pretties. The door itself weighs 10,086 pounds. The rest of the frame, the hinges, the hardware, all that, we're looking at about 11,200. So every day at 5 o'clock when we close up, at least when I'm around here, I try to grab a little kid to help me close the door. And my littlest little kid was 3, and my biggest little kid was 91. She was sitting on that bench right over there. I said, "You look like you're in touch with your inner child." She said, "I am." And I said, "Would you like me to help me close this door?" And she said, "I would." And so, boom. The cases inside here, I got no control over those. This is, like I said, this is Dan's collection, so he's got the lock to all those, so I can't get you in there. Please, please, please take all the photographs you like. A lot of times in museums, they don't want you, or video. Sometimes, in museums, they don't want you taking flash photography because that flash might harm delicate clothing or paper artifacts or things along those lines. And your flash photography, there's your camera right there, good. Your flash photography is not going to hurt our Sherman tanks, even in the slightest. So ask or take all those pictures you like. The other thing is this tour is by no means comprehensive. I could spend 3 days talking about what I know, and what I know is this much. So we're going to try to hit the high points. If I don't cover something, if there's something you see you want to know more about, ask me the question. I will cheerfully answer that question for you. If for no other reason, because right now I'm entering data in an inventory, and I'd much rather be talking to you guys than doing data entry. So if you have any questions, please, please, please ask me. You guys got any questions right now? All right, let's go inside. Let's go inside. After you. Can you hear? What I'm going to show you is this gun right here. This is the gun. It's not a representative piece. It's not something similar. It's not the same kind of model. This is the gun that fired the first bullet at the Battle of Bunker Hill. The commanding officer of the Patriots, the Americans, the colonists, was a fellow named Prescott, and he famously ordered his men, don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes. And this cocky private from this New Hampshire militia regiment sees a British officer at about 54 yards and thinks, "I think I can take that guy." And he did, shot him. And everything I've heard is that was an aimed shot, which to me is remarkable because it's a smooth bore, so that bullet's going to kind of bounce down in barrel as it goes. But the other thing is I thought for the longest time that this thing had no rear sight on it at all. But if you know right where to look, there's a little bitty line that's been gouged in there with a file. And I'm here to tell you, I got laugh lines deeper than that rear sight is. But if the guy was able
Just a little bitty.
to shoot that officer 54 yards with that, that's a heck of a shot. Yeah, laugh line's deeper than that. So, this gun is absolutely the Second Amendment. Simpson takes his gun, he goes off and he fights the War of Independence. We've got at least, this machine gun is actually pre-World War I, World War I, into World War II. I always like to point this one out, this 50 caliber M2 machine gun. This gun was invented, was produced, designed, created, however you want to call it, before World War II, and we still use the same gun today. There's been a couple of modifications made to it, but we still use that old M2, that Ma Deuce today. The one that's my favorite in this little section is that one sitting down the deck over there in the corner. It's an M60 light machine. Of course, all my Vietnam vets will immediately recognize that thing. And I said it the other day, I said, this is a light machine gun. And one of my Vietnam vets said, there ain't nothing light about that gun.
That's for sure.
That gun, I mean, it weighs 23 pounds. Yeah.
Okay.
But when I was in the Army, among other things, I was a 60 gunner. And I like that gun a lot. It's extremely accurate. I can hit a 600-meter target with one short burst of gunfire. It's extremely accurate. The parts are big, so it's easy to clean. It's important is that this is serial number 1. This is the first production M60 off the lines. I think that's kind of cool. All right.
I carried one of them through basic training.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is the gun is kind of heavy, but you got a big wide strap. And that strap takes up a lot of the pressure on your shoulder. But the guy carrying the ammunition, you have a box, and there was this little nylon strap that kind of rolls up about the size of my bootlace. You got 100 rounds of ammunition, that weight is just digging into your shoulder. So I think that's the biggest reason a lot of those guys carried those things bandolier style across their chest. But yeah, I liked my 60 a lot. Liked it a lot. When I started working here, I thought all that was a machine gun in a briefcase. It's actually kind of a briefcase machine gun. And if you notice, if you can see where my little red dot is, right there is where the muzzle is, and right there's the trigger. So I have no idea how accurate this thing really is, but I don't know how accurate it needs to be. Because if I can just walk up on you with my briefcase, I can do some damage. Now I recently went back and I was looking at photographs from when Ronald Reagan was shot. And there are a couple of Secret Service members who are carrying briefcases suspiciously similar to this one. The gun I like, I think this is actually very historically important, is this one right here. This top left, this number 1 here, it's nothing special. It's a model 1911 45 caliber ACP. It's the standard firearm in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all the way up until about the middle and late 80s when we started switching over to 9mm Berettas, which I personally thought was a shame. I like the 45. But what makes this one interesting, the significance of this one, is this is manufactured by the Singer Sewing Machine Company. So we know in World War II, a lot of the manufacturing shifted from a civilian focus to a military focus. And this is just one example of that. Singer actually only made 500 of these things. And then the War Department said, we want you to stop. Your quality is actually too good. And they shifted them over from making these to making bomb sights, to making navigation systems for heavy bombers, doing that kind of stuff. But this gives me a chance to kind of talk about World War II and a whole nationwide effort to produce arms and vehicles and ammunition and all this stuff. The National Cash Register Company, Dayton, Ohio, made 50 caliber machine guns. So there's a lot of things. Ford and Chevy and some of those Mack are now making trucks, but these guys are making pistols, and I think that's pretty cool. Before World War II, let's say about 1938, early 1939, the United States military were looking at a total of about 400,000 men in uniform, less than 500,000. It sounds like a lot, but it's really, really not when these guys are spread all around the world and across all the different branches of the military. President Roosevelt saw how ill prepared we were in World War I. So by the end of World War I, We don't manufacture our own machine guns. We don't manufacture our own tanks. We make one plane that is so bad, the air crews call it the flaming coffin. We are not ready in World War I. So when World War II is just over the horizon, Roosevelt wants to make sure we're not making the same mistake again. So by 1940, he issues the first peacetime draft in the United States. He doesn't have a whole lot of money for his military, but what he can do is he can order his War Department to start researching and developing equipment, ammunition, armor, guns, vehicles, aircraft carriers, all these things. So by the time the war hits, by the time December 7th rolls around, we're not nearly as far behind the 8 ball as we possibly could have been. Let's go talk about some of this.
By the time I joined in August, they give me this in December. I was in the combat zone by January.
Wow.
So it kind of was
Mind if I get a
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
This is cool,
Can I say something rude?
Go ahead.
It's 50 years too late.
Well,
That wasn't rude.
well, for right now, for what it's worth, welcome home. So there you go. There you go. That is. God, I get to play with the toys. I got goosebumps right now. That's so cool.
That's a draft card.
It says that I was in the combat zone too.
It does
And I
give you
got this
goosebumps.
when I was 18 and when I was 19.
And you were in a combat zone, but you still couldn't vote
I
yet.
was on the USS Midway.
Really? Wow.
And I tell all young men today, go in the military, travel at government expense to see other cultures.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I did that. I did that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Anybody else want to look at this before I put them away?
Here, I'll get it under the light a little bit better right here.
Well, how about, we're glad you came home.
Yes.
My draft
I was
letter
here
was
Saturday.
signed by Nixon,
Oh my goodness. Wow.
and I should have saved it.
Through all of it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so cool.
You haven't been here before.
Very cool.
Wow.
This is not
Thank you for bringing this in, man. Thank you. This is neat. This
Yeah.
is so neat. Well, guys, thank you for that little jaunt off the side. I appreciate that. I love this job. I so much love this gig because I get things like this happening, not daily, but close enough to it. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right, where was I? World War II. World War II. So as I said back there in the weapons vault, we start off late 1930s, and we've got 400,000 men in uniform. Army, Navy, Air Force doesn't exist yet, of course. Marine Corps, but Coast Guard, Merchant Marines, there's not a lot of guys. By the time we get to this point, this is June 6, 1944, and this is our representation of D-Day. And by D-Day, I need to back up because every time there was an amphibious assault, it was always D-Day. But this is what we know as the D-Day. So D-Day, the D stands for day. So it's day, and then H hour, so that's hour. But this is D-Day. By the time we get to this point, we're looking at 12 million men in uniform, plus all this equipment right here that we absolutely did not have just a couple years earlier. And the reason we need all of this is because, again, I'm going to back up to World War I. The way we fight, the way we get into combat is we jump on an ocean liner, probably one that we captured from the Germans. We sail across the Atlantic, and we disembark almost always, usually at the French port city of Brest, and you jump on a train, and boom, you're at the Western Front. And here, we need to establish a beachhead everywhere we go. We need to kick in the front door. And that's Sicily, it's Italy, it's North Africa, it's all these Pacific islands, it's Normandy, it's all over the place. The first time we can get anywhere is we have to establish the beachhead under force of arms. So that's how we're doing this right here. Let's come take a look at this. So one of the things I always like to point out is this little boat right here, this little sailboat. And first of all, I think it just looks fast. And I want to take this out of Boise Reservoir and see how fast I can get it to go, but I don't think Dan's going to let me do that anytime soon. It's called a Special Operations Canoe, but it's more obviously a kayak. How this thing works is you can actually disassemble it and then reassemble it on the deck of a submarine. And so this two-man crew here, they're typically frogmen or UDT specialists or something along those lines. You park your submarine about a mile offshore at night, moonless night, so the moon's already set or has not yet risen. And the two-man crew, they paddle into shore, and they're starting to look for things like beach obstacle up here. This is called a hedgehog. This will definitely stop a truck. If you're driving a tank and you're not paying attention, this will high center you as well. And we, by June 6th, we know where almost every single one, we almost know where every stone is on the beach, because these guys doing the reconnoiters have done such a fantastic job. But they paddle in, they start identifying where all these obstacles are, and then what kind of obstacles. Are they concrete, are they steel, do they have explosion, like mines on them, what? But then also, every bit as important, how hard is that sand? Can I drive a tank? Can I drive a truck up on that sand? Famously at Iwo Jima, as our Marines are trying to get over that black volcanic sand, these guys can't even walk over this stuff because it's such soft, you just sink in it. But are there weird sandbars out under the water? Are there weird currents in the water? We get all this information, and then these two fellows, they paddle back out to that submarine. And of course, that conning tower got about that big, and it's just pitch black. And you've got a little light, you've got a signal lamp on the front so you can shoot out Morse code or do whatever. But as soon as you turn that light on, now you've got some guy manning a machine gun up on that cliff above you is going to start lighting you up. So yeah, just the guts these guys had to have was pretty impressive. But I like that one a lot. All right, let's talk about, as I said, this is great for stopping vehicles. The neat thing about this particular one is this is what I think of as a combat veteran. This hedgehog was on Utah Beach at D-Day. Now, I've had people ask if these little holes right here, if those are bullet holes, if that's battle damage, and I will bet you any amount of money you care to wager that no. I think that's just where the thing was when it was assembled, it was put together. And these things are simple to assemble because for the most part they're put together by slave labor. But they're still extremely effective. Like I say, you can stop a land vehicle, but if the water's about yay deep, you're also going to rip the belly out of any of these landing craft that come in here. And these landing craft, every one of them are just battlefield taxis. Their whole job is all day long, they're going out to the troop transports, they're bringing men and supplies in, they're going back out, they're coming back in all day long. And if I can start ripping out the bottoms of some of these boats, as a defender, I've made my life a whole lot easier. Now, if you look at, does somebody have, oh, sorry. So if you look at this photograph back here, you've got that on our left, there's that soldier with that rainbow on his helmet. He's a beach engineer, he's a combat engineer, and his job is to clear these things. And for the longest time, it's like, how do you, it's just steel. You can't blow it up, it's steel. You're not going to hurt it enough. But I was talking to a buddy of mine who is also a combat engineer, and he said what you do is you put one explosive down here on this side, and you put one explosive on this side, and it blows the things away from each other. So they're still there, but now you can drive the tank. So you come back later on at D-Day plus 3 or 4 or whatever you need to do, and then you start disassembling these things. And then they would also they would cut these, and they'd weld them to the bottoms and fronts of their tanks, and they'd put a sharpened edge on the front of all of those, and that would help them dig through the hedgerow country later on. So pretty ingenious. All right, let's come up here and talk. He had looked at our landing craft, and we didn't have this front ramp that dropped down. He was not happy with those. But he had seen that the Japanese had that front ramp, and they were very effective in China. And so he incorporates that into his boat here. He is so confident that the military is going to want to buy these things that he buys up every single stick of Philippine mahogany in the year 1939. He buys the entire lot, and he incorporates that into these boats. It doesn't really look like it, but these are wooden boats, at least the earlier versions were. Now, the way they work is, come on in, guys, come on in further, please. The way they work, see this image right here. I guarantee you that is not combat footage. Those guys are smiling, they're laughing, they're joking. There's a guy kind of shouting something at the cameraman. The way these things work is you load 36 combat-loaded troops, be they soldiers or Marines, into one of these, and then you've got a 4-man crew of the boat itself, and the crews are typically Coast Guard. We always forget about the Coasties, but the Coasties played a huge role in World War II. So they got these 36 men loaded in this boat. Now, if you put yourself in your combat boots for a second, the night before you assault, you know exactly which wave you're going in under. So if you know what wave it is, you have a good idea of what time someone's going to be starting to shoot at you. So those butterflies start kicking in. The Navy, very thought, breakfast of steak and eggs, and I'm thinking if my gut's churning already, you give me that much fat and protein, and it's going to be a gut bomb. So it's just sitting there. The way you get loaded into this boat is you pull this little boat up next to a much bigger boat, a troop transport. And a troop transport carries 1,000, maybe 1,500 guys. And you just throw a rope net over the side. You climb down from the big boat into the little boat, and both boats are moving at different rates because the waves are affecting them differently. You're carrying 50, 60, maybe 80 pounds worth of gear. And there are a number of troops who die or are seriously injured just trying to go from one craft to the other. Now you've loaded in this thing, and you can't go right straight to the beach because you have to stage up. You have to wait for your entire wave to be formed up, so you all hit the beach at the same time, so you're overwhelming the enemy's defenses. So you're just staging, you're just circling out there. And that makes me think of every time I fly into Chicago O'Hare Airport, and I'm stuck in a holding pattern for an hour or an hour and a half. But while you're stuck in this holding pattern, you're also elbow to elbow with everybody around you. All you can smell are the diesel fumes from those marine exhaust, the exhaust from those big marine motors, plus those waves in the English Ocean are starting to affect you, the English Channel, excuse me. And
This
by the
is
time
the
you
end
actually
of
hit the
part
beach, you're
1. I
probably
will
about
bring
300
you part 2 in
These boys are
2
not
days.